Two-time World Heavyweight Champion, winner of the world title at WrestleMania, and one of the most respected wrestlers in the history of the sport. And that same man, killing his own wife, taking the life of his own 7-year-old son, and ending his own life in the weight room of his family home. Everybody knows what Chris Benoit did, but nobody has told you how he did it, and what's even more painful, why he chose his own family, until today. Today you're going to find out how Chris Benoit murdered Nancy and his son. You're going to find out how he set the whole thing up over 3 days. And the worst part? Why he chose his own family. Even more disturbing, you're going to find out what he searched on Google the morning before his suicide. And you're going to find out the medical truth that came out 3 months after the triple killing. But before all that, you need to understand how Chris Benoit got there. How a Canadian kid from Montreal, obsessed since the age of 12 with wrestling technique, ended up taking his family's lives and hanging himself with the cable of his own weight machine. But first, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, May 21st, 1967. Christopher Michael Benoit is born. 5 feet 8 inches tall, 220 pounds at full-grown weight. Middle-class Canadian parents, regular Catholic family, normal childhood. When he turns 12, everything changes. Chris Benoit watches Dynamite Kid in a Stampede wrestling ring for the first time. A British wrestler, 5 feet 8 inches exactly. The same height Chris would grow into as an adult, and the same wrestling style he would carry with him for the next 30 years. The diving headbutt. A leap from the top rope, driving his head straight into the chest of his opponent. Remember that move. We'll come back to it. Because 28 years later, that same move would destroy Chris Benoit's brain to the point of turning it into the brain of an 80-year-old with severe Alzheimer's, and turn his wife and his little boy into 2 victims of the triple killing of June 2007. At 17, Chris Benoit moved to Calgary, Alberta, the Hart Dungeon, a basement inside the Hart family home, the most important family in Canadian wrestling in the 1980s. Run by Stu Hart, the patriarch of the family, with a roster of trainees that included Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Davey Boy Smith, and Dynamite Kid himself. Chris Benoit trained in the Hart Dungeon for 2 years, knees fractured twice, nose broken 3 times, ribs cracked 6 times, and an obsession with copying the exact technique of the British hero he had worshipped since age 12. Pro debut in Stampede Wrestling, December 1985. At 18, Chris Benoit was the youngest wrestler on the Canadian circuit. Remember that debut? We'll come back to it. And in 1990, at 23 years old, Chris Benoit made the most important move of his career. Japan. New Japan Pro Wrestling, the toughest wrestling league in the world in the 1990s. A brutally physical style, 7-figure yearly contracts, and a nickname that would define Chris Benoit's career in Japanese wrestling. Wild Pegasus, white mask with gold detail, a suicidal aerial style, diving headbutts from the top rope in every single match. He won the 1994 Super J Cup at the Ryogoku Kokugikan in Tokyo, the most prestigious tournament in international light heavyweight wrestling, against Great Sasuke in the final. And over the next 5 years in Japan, Chris Benoit took more than 300 documented diving headbutts in his professional wrestling career. 300 documented diving headbutts. Remember that number. We'll come back to it. Because every single one of those 300 leaps was a direct blow to Chris Benoit's brain. And 13 years later, 3 doctors from the Sports Legacy Institute would confirm exactly what that fighting style had done. And Dynamite Kid, the man Chris Benoit had worshipped since age 12, the wrestler who had invented the diving headbutt in the 1980s, had ended up in a wheelchair by the age of 40. His body destroyed by the same fighting style. More than 2,000 documented blows to the head over 15 years in the ring. And a permanent disability caused by the very move that had made the British wrestler famous. Dynamite Kid begged Chris Benoit in a private conversation in Calgary, Alberta, back in 1997. Drop the diving headbutt. It's going to kill you before you turn 50. Chris Benoit didn't listen. He kept using the diving headbutt in every match of his career for the next 10 years. Remember that conversation. We'll come back to it. In 1995, at 28 years old, Chris Benoit came back to North America. Extreme Championship Wrestling, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 6 short months in ECW, and a broken neck he gave a fellow wrestler, Sabu, that almost ended his American wrestling career right there in a Philadelphia ring. Paul Heyman fired him that same month. Chris Benoit signed with World Championship Wrestling, WCW, the biggest wrestling league in the southern United States, under the head booker, Kevin Sullivan. And in the WCW locker room, Chris Benoit met a woman who would change the rest of his life. Nancy Sullivan, 33 years old, wife of head booker Kevin Sullivan for the past 10 years. A pro wrestling manager known by her stage name, Woman. Dark hair, dark eyes, and immediate chemistry with Chris inside the WCW storyline. Kevin Sullivan had written a storyline for WCW television. Nancy would fake a romantic affair with Chris Benoit to boost Monday night ratings. The storyline worked too well. The private rehearsals Kevin Sullivan had set up for the storyline between Nancy and Chris turned into real meetings off the set, private dinners in Atlanta, weekend trips to Peachtree City, and a secret relationship Kevin Sullivan uncovered in the months that followed. Nancy Sullivan filed for a real divorce from Kevin Sullivan in 1997. And began a real relationship with Chris Benoit inside the WCW locker room. Remember that divorce. We'll come back to it, because 10 years later, that same woman would become the first victim of the triple killing of June 22, 2007, in the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia. Hands and feet bound in the bonus room, strangled by the same man who had taken her from Kevin Sullivan in the WCW locker room. The next 3 years in WCW were the best years of Chris Benoit's career up to that point. WCW World Heavyweight Champion in January 2000. Only 4 days as champion before he was stripped of the belt by Vince Russo, the head booker of the league at the time. An incident that ended Chris Benoit's professional relationship with WCW. Chris Benoit quit the title and the league that same week, and he took 3 of the most respected technical wrestlers in the WCW locker room with him: Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn. Remember that lost title. We'll come back to it, because 7 years later, Chris Benoit would win a world title for the second time, and lose it in a very different way. His own suicide in the weight room of his family home. January 2000, Georgia, United States. Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn, the 4 most respected technical wrestlers in WCW, walked out of the company on the same night over differences with management. The Radicals. All 4 signed with Vince McMahon's World Wrestling Federation that same week, and debuted on Monday Night Raw in a historic move. Chris Benoit was 32 years old. Nancy Sullivan moved with him to Atlanta, Georgia, that same month, and on November 23, 2000, Chris Benoit and Nancy Sullivan got married in a private ceremony in Peachtree City, Georgia. Remember that wedding? We'll come back to it, because 7 years and 7 months later, that same family home in Peachtree City would become the scene of the most infamous triple killing in pro wrestling history, with Nancy as the first victim, Little Daniel as the second victim, and Chris Benoit hanging from the cable of his own weight machine in the basement gym. Today you're going to find out exactly how Chris Benoit, 2-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion, planned the 3 days of killings that would tear the entire pro wrestling industry apart. You're going to find out why he chose Friday, June 22, 2007 to begin, how he bound Nancy Benoit hand and foot, his wife for 7 years, the former woman of WCW, 43 years old, in the bonus room of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia, and why he chose to strangle her with his bare hands instead of using any of the weapons he had in the house. You're going to find out what he did the next day, Saturday, June 23, when he walked into the bedroom of his own son, Daniel Benoit, a 7-year-old boy with Fragile X syndrome, how he gave him Xanax to sedate him before the attack, and how he suffocated him using the same chokehold Chris had used in the wrestling ring for 22 years. Remember this dark detail. In the weeks leading up to the triple killing, Nancy Benoit had filed for divorce twice at the Fayette County Family Court in Georgia. Both times she withdrew the petition, the first out of fear, the second for a reason Chris Benoit took to the grave. February 25, 2000, Peachtree City, Georgia. 3 months after Nancy's move to Atlanta, Daniel Christopher Benoit is born. the only biological child of Chris Benoit and Nancy Sullivan Benoit. And within months of his birth, little Daniel was diagnosed with a genetic condition that would shape the next 7 years of the family's life. Fragile X syndrome, an inherited condition that causes cognitive delays, learning problems, and a body size well below the average for his age. With no known cure in modern medicine, treated with experimental hormone therapy to boost physical growth during childhood. Daniel Benoit received documented growth hormone injections for the first 5 years of his life. Remember those injections. We'll come back to them. Because 7 years later, Fayette County Police would find needle marks on little Daniel Benoit's arm, right next to his suffocated body in his own bedroom. And while Nancy was raising little Daniel in the family home in Peachtree City, Georgia, Chris Benoit was living the best years of his career in American pro wrestling. WrestleMania 20, March 14, 2004, Madison Square Garden, New York City, the biggest annual event in professional wrestling. Chris Benoit wins the WWE World Heavyweight Championship in the main event at Madison Square Garden, against Triple H and Shawn Michaels, the two most established wrestlers on the WWE roster, in a triple threat match that ran 60 minutes. And 10 minutes after the end of that match, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit's best friend from the WCW days and the Radicals jump of 2000, climbed into the ring at Madison Square Garden with the WWE Championship in his hands. A double victory on the same night. The two most technical Latino wrestlers in the business, world champions on the same Madison Square Garden ring, celebrating the peak moment of their careers on the biggest stage in pro wrestling. With Nancy Benoit and 4-year-old Daniel clapping from the front row. Chris Benoit raised the World Heavyweight Championship above his head. Eddie Guerrero raised the WWE Championship above his head. The two former Radicals who had walked out of WCW 4 years earlier were celebrating the peak of everything they had built, right there on the Madison Square Garden ring. And moments after that final embrace, Chris Benoit dropped to his knees in the ring, tears in his eyes, and made a small gesture toward Nancy Benoit sitting in the front row at Madison Square Garden. A quiet gesture. The best moment in the career of a Canadian kid who had started at age 12 obsessed with Dynamite Kid's wrestling technique, and who had built a family with the woman who had left Kevin Sullivan for him in the WCW locker room. Remember that embrace. We'll come back to it. Because 14 months later, Eddie Guerrero would be dead in a Marriott hotel room in Minneapolis from a heart attack caused by long-term steroid use. And the death of his best friend would mark the beginning of the end for Chris Benoit. November 13, 2005, Marriott Hotel, downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota. Chavo Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero's nephew, calls the hotel front desk at 7 in the morning. He asks someone to go up to the 11th floor because Eddie hasn't answered his phone in 2 hours. Hotel staff enter room 1104, and they find Eddie Guerrero dead on the bathroom floor. 38 years old. Acute heart failure, coronary arteries clogged with arteriosclerotic plaque. Cause of death ruled by the Hennepin County, Minnesota medical examiner. Long-term use of anabolic steroids and opioid painkillers over the last 15 years of his career. Eddie Guerrero was getting ready for the SmackDown show that same night at the XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Chris Benoit was the wrestler scheduled to tag with Eddie that night. Chris Benoit got the call from Chavo Guerrero from that Marriott hotel room, and he flew to Minneapolis on the next flight in the following 4 hours. Remember that hotel room. We'll come back to it. The night of November 13, 2005, WWE put together a live tribute show for Eddie Guerrero's life and career. Chris Benoit couldn't speak on camera. He broke down in the locker room at the XL Energy Center, next to Eddie's wife Vicky Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero. He cried for 3 straight hours. He couldn't make it onto the WWE ring, and he asked Vince McMahon for permission to go home to Peachtree City, Georgia, to be with his family for the next 5 days of mourning. Vince McMahon granted it. And that same night, on the private flight home to Georgia, Chris Benoit made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He got a tattoo on his left arm, the initials EG for Eddie Guerrero, right next to the words Latino Heat in black cursive ink. And he started carrying in his personal bag the wrestling glove Eddie Guerrero had worn in his last match of 2005. Remember that tattoo. We'll come back to it. Because 19 months later, Chris Benoit would be down in the weight room of his family home in Fayetteville, Georgia, with the Eddie Guerrero tattoo on his left arm, wrapping the cable of the weight machine around his neck. The depression Chris Benoit fell into after Eddie Guerrero's death changed him forever. His WWE locker room brothers noticed it in the first 4 months of 2006. Personality changes, rage outbursts during private walkthroughs for SmackDown, progressive loss of short-term memory. The writers had to repeat basic instructions to Chris Benoit over and over for the next 12 months. Paranoia in the locker room. Chris Benoit accused co-workers of stealing personal items twice, items that turned up in his own bag days later. Kurt Angle, Chavo Guerrero, Dean Malenko, the 3 closest guys to Chris in the locker room, talked to Vince McMahon privately over the next 6 months of 2006. Nobody did anything. And in October 2006, Chris Benoit walked for the first time into the private practice of Dr. Phil Aston, an internal medicine specialist in Carroll County, Georgia. Remember that doctor? We'll come back to him. Dr. Phil Aston, third in a medical dynasty out of Carrollton, Georgia, was 43 years old. He diagnosed Chris Benoit with a condition called hypogonadism, low natural testosterone, a medical condition often associated with long-term anabolic steroid use during a wrestling career. And he prescribed synthetic testosterone for the next 3 years, along with hydrocodone, hydromorphone, Xanax, and human growth hormone. Every one of those medications legal under Dr. Aston's signature. Remember that Xanax. We'll come back to it, because 9 months later, that same Xanax would show up in little Daniel Benoit's system, next to the suffocated body of the 7-year-old boy in the bedroom of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia. December 2006, Peachtree City, Georgia. Nancy Benoit walked into the Fayette County Family Court in Georgia for the second time to file a divorce petition against Chris Benoit. The first time had been in 2003, withdrawn out of fear. The second time now, withdrawn for a reason Chris Benoit took to the grave. Family court documents released posthumously by Fayette County Police after the triple killing revealed the reason for the 2006 divorce filing. Documented domestic violence, rage outbursts, furniture destroyed inside the family home, explicit verbal threats against his wife, and one warning Nancy Benoit wrote in the court file: "I'm afraid for my life and for the life of my son." Nancy withdrew the petition within 14 days, and Chris Benoit moved back into the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia, in the next 2 weeks. Remember those words. We'll come back to them. Even more disturbing, you're going to find out exactly what Chris Benoit did in the hours before his own suicide in the Fayetteville, Georgia mansion. You're going to find out that in the early hours of June 24, 2007, with the bodies of Nancy and Daniel Benoit still inside the family home for more than 24 hours, Chris Benoit sat down at the computer in the living room, and he Googled 2 chilling things. First, stories about the prophet Elijah, the biblical prophet who had brought a 7-year-old boy back to life in the Old Testament. And second, the easiest way for a person to break their neck. He placed one Bible next to Nancy's body in the bonus room. He placed another Bible next to little Daniel's body in the bedroom. And he placed a third Bible on the weight machine in the basement gym. Lock this in. Chris Benoit hanged himself using a cable from the weight machine in his own home gym, the same machine he had used to train his athletic body for the last 22 years of his career. And sitting on that machine, the third Bible. Open. Friday, June 22, 2007. Family home, Green Meadow Lane, Fayetteville, Georgia, 22 miles south of Atlanta. 2-story mansion. Private bonus room on the first floor. Little Daniel Benoit's bedroom on the second floor. Family gym in the basement. Chris Benoit had come home from the SmackDown event earlier that evening. Nancy Benoit was waiting for him in the living room. 10 p.m. on Friday, June 22, 2007. Chris Benoit walks into the first floor bonus room where Nancy Benoit is watching television alone. Nancy is 43 years old. Chris is 40. She's 5 feet 6 inches. He's 5 feet 8 inches. He weighs 220 pounds. She weighs 110 pounds. The fight starts quietly in the bonus room. Chris Benoit binds Nancy Benoit's hands and feet with cords from the basement gym. He lays her face down on the hardwood floor of the bonus room, and he holds her down with his knee for the next 3 minutes of silent struggle. And then he strangles her with his bare hands. Nancy Benoit dies of asphyxiation in the first-floor bonus room of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia, in the early hours of Friday, June 22, 2007. Chris Benoit wraps her in a white towel from the main bathroom. Remember that towel. We'll come back to it. Saturday, June 23, 2007, 7 in the morning. Chris Benoit wakes little Daniel Benoit up in his second-floor bedroom. He tells little Daniel that Nancy is sick down in the bonus room and that he can't go down to see her all day Saturday. And he gives little Daniel 2 Xanax pills with a glass of water. Daniel Benoit falls asleep in the next 15 minutes. Chris Benoit sits on the edge of his son's bed for 2 hours, eyes fixed on the sleeping face of little Daniel. And at 9 in the morning, on Saturday, June 23, 2007, Chris Benoit applies the chokehold, the same submission hold Chris had used in the wrestling ring for the last 22 years, around the neck of little Daniel Benoit. 4 minutes of strangulation on his own 7-year-old son. Daniel Christopher Benoit dies of asphyxiation in the second-floor bedroom of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia, on the morning of Saturday, June 23, 2007. Saturday, June 23, 2007, 11 in the morning, family home, Green Meadow Lane, Fayetteville, Georgia. Chris Benoit walks out of little Daniel Benoit's second-floor bedroom, hands still slick with sweat from the 4-minute chokehold he has just applied to his own 7-year-old son. He goes down the stairs to the first floor. He walks into the bonus room, where Nancy Benoit's body is still wrapped in the white towel from the main bathroom since the night before. And he picks up the cell phone in the living room. 11:45. In the morning, Chris Benoit calls WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. He speaks to the head of the SmackDown roster, and he tells a lie that would buy the killer 22 extra hours before the triple killing was discovered. Nancy and Daniel have food poisoning. I'm feeling sick too. I can't make it to the show in Beaumont tonight, or the Vengeance pay-per-view in Houston tomorrow. WWE grants him leave inside the next 20 minutes. Chris Benoit hangs up the phone, and he is left alone in the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia, with the bodies of Nancy and little Daniel for the next 18 hours. Remember those 18 hours. We'll come back to them. Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday morning. Chris Benoit paces through the hallways of the family home on Green Meadow Lane, Fayetteville, Georgia, for the entire length of Saturday, June 23rd, and into the early hours of Sunday, June 24th, 2007. He goes up to little Daniel Benoit's bedroom. He sits on the edge of his son's bed. He touches the boy's hand. He fixes the hair on his forehead, and he places a brown teddy bear between his arms. He goes down to the first-floor bonus room. He sits on the wooden floor next to Nancy Benoit's wrapped body. He pulls the white towel back from her face. He arranges her dark hair over her shoulders, and he holds her left hand between his own hands for the next 40 minutes. Nobody knows exactly how many times Chris Benoit went up and down the stairs of that family home during those 18 hours between Saturday and Sunday of 2007. But at 3:51 in the morning on Sunday, June 24th, Chris Benoit picked up his cell phone for the second time, and he sent 5 text messages. 3:51, 3:53, 3:55, 3:57, 3:58 in the morning. 5 text messages. Sent to 3 WWE locker room co-workers, Chavo Guerrero, Scotty 2 Hotty, and Dave Taylor. All of them with the exact same content. The exact address of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia. And one line at the end of the message: the side door is open. Chavo Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero's nephew and Chris Benoit's personal friend since the Marriott Minneapolis days of November 13, 2005, received the text at 4 in the morning on Sunday, June 24, 2007. And he did not reply for the next 4 hours. Nobody in the WWE locker room replied to Chris Benoit's message. Remember those messages. We'll come back to them. 4:30 in the morning on Sunday, June 24, 2007. Chris Benoit sits down at the computer in the living room of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia. He opens the browser on his personal computer, and he Googles the first chilling thing of the last hour of his life. The story of the prophet Elijah from the Old Testament. Elijah, the biblical prophet from the kingdom of Israel in the 9th century BC, who had brought a dead 7-year-old boy back to life, according to the first book of Kings in the Hebrew Old Testament. Chris Benoit read the passage for the next 20 minutes, and then he typed out the second search of the last hour of his life. The easiest way for a person to break their own neck. 5 results from anonymous web pages. Chris Benoit shut down his personal computer at 5 in the morning on Sunday, June 24, 2007. Remember those searches. We'll come back to them. And at 5:15 in the morning on Sunday, June 24, 2007, Chris Benoit took 3 Bibles from the shelf in the living room of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia. He placed the first Bible next to Nancy Benoit's wrapped body in the first-floor bonus room. He placed the second Bible next to little Daniel Benoit's body on the bed in the second-floor bedroom, at the feet of the brown teddy bear Chris had placed between his son's arms 22 hours earlier. And he placed the third Bible on the weight machine in the basement gym, open on the padded seat of the lat pull-down machine Chris had used to train for the last 10 years. Remember that third Bible. We'll come back to it. And the hardest part to believe, how 3 doctors from the Sports Legacy Institute, Julian Bales, Bennett Omalu, and Robert Cantu, revealed 3 months after the triple killing that Chris Benoit's brain, at 40 years old, looked like the brain of an 80-year-old with severe Alzheimer's, chronic traumatic encephalopathy in every region of the brain. The most damaged brain the 3 Sports Legacy Institute doctors had ever examined in their entire careers. You're going to find out that Chris Benoit had taken more than 1,000 documented blows to the head over 22 years in professional wrestling, using the diving headbutt technique he had inherited from the legendary Dynamite Kid, the same wrestler who had ended up in a wheelchair from the exact same move. But even more disturbing, the WWE locker room brothers, the personal doctors, the family, and the closest friends had seen every warning sign in the 6 months leading up to the triple killing. The personality changes, the memory loss, the paranoia, the depression after the death of his best friend Eddie Guerrero. And lock this in, nobody did anything. Not Vince McMahon, not his personal doctor Phil Aston, the same doctor who had been prescribing him testosterone for the last 3 years. Not his locker room brothers Chavo Guerrero, Dean Malenko, or Kurt Angle. Not even Nancy Benoit herself, the woman who would become the first victim of the triple killing of June 22, 2007. 5:30 in the morning on Sunday, June 24, 2007. Chris Benoit walks down the basement stairs of the family home on Green Meadow Lane, Fayetteville, Georgia. He turns on the fluorescent light in his personal gym. He walks over to the lat pull-down machine in the corner. He grabs the steel cable coated in black plastic, and he ties the cable around his neck with a simple gym knot. He climbs up onto the padded seat of the machine. The third Bible is still open on the seat. And at 5:45 in the morning on Sunday, June 24, 2007, Chris Benoit lets his body drop toward the basement gym floor. The cable of the lat pull-down machine holds the full 220 pounds of the former pro wrestler. Chris Benoit dies of asphyxiation in the next 3 minutes. 3 deaths in 3 days. 3 Bibles. 3 bodies in a family home in Fayetteville, Georgia. And one single question the 3 Sports Legacy Institute doctors would try to answer over the next 3 months. Monday, June 25, 2007, 11:30 in the morning. WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, decides to call 911 in Fayette County, Georgia, to request a welfare check at Chris Benoit's family home. Nobody in the WWE locker room has been able to reach Chris in more than 36 hours. Deputies from the Fayette County Sheriff's Office arrive at the home on Green Meadow Lane, Fayetteville, Georgia, at 12:15 in the afternoon. The side door is open, just like Chris Benoit had written in the 5 text messages he sent in the early hours of Sunday, June 24th. The deputies walk inside the family home of the former pro wrestler, and they find 3 bodies inside. Nancy Benoit in the first-floor bonus room, wrapped in the white towel from the main bathroom, hands and feet bound, Bible next to her body. Daniel Christopher Benoit in the second-floor bedroom, on his bed, brown teddy bear between his arms, Bible next to his body, and needle marks on his left arm from the growth hormone shots Dr. Phil Aston had been giving him for the last 5 years. Chris Benoit in the basement gym. Hanging from the cable of the lat pull-down machine, the third Bible open on the padded seat. Fayette County Sheriff Randall Johnson gave the department's official statement at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, June 25, 2007. One line that would define the rest of modern pro wrestling history. This is a double homicide and a suicide. All of it committed by the husband. Remember that report. We'll come back to it. The night of Monday, June 25, 2007, WWE had Monday Night Raw scheduled live from the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York. Vince McMahon, WWE chairman, made a snap decision in the 4 hours before the show was set to air. Cancel the live show, refund every ticket sold at the Long Island venue, and broadcast on USA Network a full 3-hour tribute show dedicated to the life and career of Chris Benoit. Vince McMahon appeared on screen at the top of the show that Monday, June 25, 2007. And he announced to America that Chris Benoit, Nancy Benoit, and Daniel Benoit had been found dead in the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia. No additional details. No mention of Chris being the killer. No warning about the content of the tribute show. 3 hours of career highlights of the former pro wrestler. 9 million Americans watched the tribute show from home that Monday night, June 25, 2007. Not knowing that the man WWE was honoring for the next 3 hours was the killer of his own wife and his own 7-year-old son. Tuesday, June 26, 2007, 9 in the morning. American news outlets break the details of the triple killing. Vince McMahon appears on screen during that same night's ECW show on the Sci-Fi Network, Today Sci-Fi, with one statement that would define the rest of modern pro wrestling history. We got it wrong. And starting that night of Tuesday, June 26, 2007, Vince McMahon erased every mention of Chris Benoit from WWE. Out of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, out of WWE television programming, out of the historical roster statistics, out of the WWE Network documentaries, and out of the American sports entertainment landscape for the next 18 years. As if Chris Benoit had never once stepped inside a WWE ring during the last 7 years of his career. Remember that erasure. We'll come back to it. September 5, 2007, Manhattan, New York. 3 months after the triple killing in Fayetteville, Georgia. The 3 doctors from the Sports Legacy Institute, Julian Bales of West Virginia University, Bennett Omalu of San Joaquin County, California, and Robert Cantu of Emerson Hospital in Massachusetts, hold a press conference alongside Michael Benoit, Chris Benoit's father. And they release the results of the post-mortem examination of the former pro wrestler's brain, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, present in every region of the brain, massive deposits of tau protein, neurons destroyed in the areas responsible for behavioral control, emotional control, memory, and rational thought. Dr. Robert Cantu gave the line that would define the rest of the scientific investigation into the triple killing in Fayetteville. His was the most extensively damaged of the brains we have examined so far. Chris Benoit, at 40 years old, had the brain of an 80-year-old with severe Alzheimer's. And 2 years later, on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., the 3 doctors from the Sports Legacy Institute would testify before the House Judiciary Committee. A testimony that would forever change the rules on concussions in the National Football League, and that would expose the CTE crisis in professional American sports for the next 18 years. Remember that hearing. We'll come back to it. Have you ever wondered how it is possible for a father, like Michael Benoit, to donate the brain of his own killer son to 3 doctors he had never met, just 90 days after the triple killing of his own family? With the one hope that medical science could explain why Chris Benoit had strangled Nancy in the first-floor bonus room, suffocated little Daniel with a chokehold in the second-floor bedroom, and hanged himself from the cable of the lat pull-down machine in the basement gym of the family home in Fayetteville, Georgia? That is the question Michael Benoit took to his own grave in 2020, without ever receiving an answer from WWE, from Vince McMahon, or from the entire pro wrestling industry over the next 13 years. In 1985, at 18 years old, Chris Benoit made his pro wrestling debut. In 2004, he won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at Madison Square Garden in New York, next to his best friend Eddie Guerrero, WWE Champion. In 2007, at 40 years old, he strangled his wife, suffocated his 7-year-old son, and hanged himself from the cable of the weight machine in the family home gym. And that same year, 2007, 3 doctors from the Sports Legacy Institute confirmed that Chris Benoit had the most damaged brain they had ever examined in their entire careers. Not Vince McMahon, not Dr. Phil Aston, not his locker room brothers, not his family. Nobody did anything in the 6 months before the triple killing. And maybe we will never know if Nancy Benoit and little Daniel Benoit could have been saved inside a psychiatric hospital in Georgia. If only somebody had seen the warning signs in the 6 months before June 22, 2007. If this story moved something inside you, hit subscribe to the Fallen Stars channel right now. And let us know in the comments if you believe Vince McMahon should have restored Chris Benoit's mentions inside WWE to honor the victims Nancy and Daniel Benoit, or if you believe the entire industry did the right thing by erasing the killer of his own family from the record for the last 18 years. We'll see you in the next video. And if you or someone close to you is going through domestic violence, if you've been the victim of physical or emotional abuse inside a personal relationship, or if you need to talk to a professional trained in domestic trauma, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline free of charge at 1-800-799-7233. And if you or someone close to you is having suicidal thoughts, if you're going through a serious emotional crisis, or if you need to talk to a professional right now, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline free of charge by dialing 988. Every day, any hour. You are never alone.